Hi, it's Tiffany Lorraine Galloway, certified high performance coach with another episode of the Resilient Mother podcast. We are continuing the conversation on resilient love. And with me today, I have Claire, who is a dating and relationship coach. Who better to talk about this? Claire, thank you for being here. Will you please tell us a little more about you?
Thank you, Tiffany. It's great to be here. And so, yes, I am a dating, relationship, and sex coach. And I work with mostly women, but I do coach men too, around really tapping into the core essence of who they are. So, getting really deeply intimate with themselves so that they can create intimacy with another human being, whatever they might choose, like their partners. And I coach a lot of men and women through dating, and often like sexuality comes hugely into that because that's been a massive part of my journey too. So really supporting women in particular to own their sexuality so that they can fully own their voices.
I'm interested with a couple of things that you just said. One, I'm kind of curious what your definition of love and resilient love is, because it sounds like that's a place you have to start with yourself. And also how mom can still feel sexy, since it's the Resilient Mother podcast. I think sometimes as a mom, we get all involved in the kids, and I think we can still, be sexy. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Resilient love. Well, I think you need resilience when you're dating, for sure. Like
mm-hmm.
you really do. And something I have really learned myself and also coached my clients through is keeping your heart open. Like it's almost like we've been wired to not feel what we deem as the negative emotions. Like we fear going through heartbreak, so we don't fully go in, right? We don't
Yeah.
fully, reveal all of ourselves because we fear rejection. And so we unconsciously kind of like put these invisible walls up around our heart space. And it's almost like we kind of like, we're kind of in, but not, we're not fully open to fully receive. And yeah, there's a lot of work that I do around masculine and feminine energies, and it's, all very much to do with that. What you put out is what you're going to attract, essentially. And so if you're slightly closed and maybe not fully committed and emotionally available, then what are you going to get?
How interesting. You'll reflect it.
Exactly. And, I've been through this journey myself. Like I went through, I was married for 19 years, together for 21 years with my ex-husband. And yeah, then like immersed myself fully into the whole dating world, which was about 2.5 years ago now. And so, yeah, I have authentically lived like and experienced all the things that you get through dating, like really, stepped into it from a very conscious perspective and gone, okay, what is this guy teaching me? What is this showing me about myself? And it's been incredibly healing and fun. It's not all been heartbreak and tears, but there's been a lot. And I realized that actually it's all, just to completely serve me and for me to be able to serve my clients fully.
I'm curious with the challenge I find is that if it was in person, I would be able to feel the person's energy and chemistry a little bit more, read their body language, see if even their face is like attractive to me, versus like texting or just seeing a picture online. It just feels so cold for me. I really struggle with like, how do I show up authentically online to, not just the highlight reel, but like show them who I am so they can kind of get the heart of me in a few words and a couple pictures so that I can really attract the right person. and that's not like catfishing or something, because it feels like you could just put your best pics out there, for example, and do the highlights, but then that's not completely authentic either. Like it's been interesting to see. And then you have people online that can easily lie about who they are and make themselves look really good. And it makes it hard to kind of trust. So a process I've been trying to do is if I get someone online, they text me a little bit, I try to get them like into Marco Polo or something where they have to do a video of themselves very authentically and kind of in whatever their environment is. So I can see if things match and I can see what their body language is, and I can have time to kind of take in, is this someone I want to continue a conversation with? Then maybe Zoom, then maybe in person. Like I'm trying to figure out the process because it is so different dating today than it used to be, at least for a single mom. So I'm curious, how do you show up authentically in all these places that way?
Yeah, great question. And sounds like you've been on a journey with all of this. And I love that you're creating, what feels right for you, because essentially, like as a woman, we need to feel safe, number one.
Yes.
Right? Because you won't go on the date with that guy.
Nope.
So safety is absolutely key. And I think, I will come back to your question in a minute, but I think, we've been kind of wrongly educated around, this feeling of butterflies, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're told that butterflies are actually a barometer for a good match. Well, actually, butterflies comes from the part of our body where fear and threat sits. And so, depending on what our, let's just say we, our conditioning was in an environment that was quite chaotic, inconsistent, emotionally unavailable caregiver or caregivers. So we were in that kind of fight or flight kind of survival state, right? The place where we're feeling this like fear and threat. So butterflies come from exactly the same place. So actually butterflies are a red flag. We're not supposed to feel butterflies with a guy. Like that is not, it's not a good match at all. It's actually telling us that, it's unsafe.
So how should it feel instead?
Calm.
Oh.
And if you're used to the feeling of butterflies, which we've all been told that is a good thing, right? Then it will feel really weird. And what I notice is women almost may see this as, oh, he's boring. But no, what he's doing is he's securing himself. And so what you're feeling is a calm nervous system, right? You're not getting all the butterflies and excitement because he makes you feel calm.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense, actually. And if you haven't had calm in your life, if you're used to chaos, like you were talking about before, I can definitely relate to that. It's hard to even know what a healthy relationship is because it feels that boring thing that you're saying, or it feels neutral and it's kind of confusing because it's not a high or a low that you're used to feeling. And I've had to just learn that within myself first, though, because I know I've got to show up authentically first in order to attract that for sure, and to recognize it too, and to be okay with the calm. And to just be okay with, oh, this feels different. Okay, well, let's go with it because we know what we were doing before sure didn't work. And yeah, I was really attached to butterflies and a lot of drama or dramatic things and gifts and things, and that always ended poorly. So yeah, that makes sense now.
Yeah, well, our strong attractions are to those things that are familiar to us, even if they're not good for us or healthy for us. So yeah, if we've had that conditioning, then that is our normal. That's our familiar. So yeah, so going back to your question about how do I show up authentically, and what was it? Tell me again.
Online, just all the processes that are available.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, it's really interesting actually. I feel like I really do show up fully authentically because I see the guys that I attract, and I get a lot of them saying to me, wow, your profile. They're like, wow, there's something really intriguing about you. Like, I'm really curious. Like, tell me more about this. And I actually like my opening line on my profile is emotional intelligence is a fuckable offense.
Yeah.
And I'm like, high EQ men come this way, right? So I'm basically saying, if you're not
Right to the point.
self-aware, I'm not interested. And I think because it is quite bold, and no one is saying that,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
No
that's true.
one is actually really hanging their hat on that and going, yes, this is the most important value. I think, I hear from the men, your profile really stands out, is what they say to me. And yeah, I've got some really sexy photos on there, but I've also got photos of me just like literally hands like this, with my coat on, and just like a really everyday kind of photo.
Yeah.
So
So you get to see
yeah, but
both,
like
like
in
the
my,
kind of glammed
what
up,
I've
that
written, and I
home.
coach clients on this is
So I was thinking, since this is the Resilient Mother podcast, I think you've given some great tips there for a single mom to show up. Yeah, I'm a single mom. Just be authentic with it. Give them a variety of flavor, as you put it, of who you are as mom, who you are as if we went out, who you are, what your interests are, and instead of just what are my best pictures, what's the best thing I can say about myself? Because I think that's the thing we think. It's like, well, you're not going to attract anybody if it's not your best put forward, but that's not authentic, and then it attracts the wrong person, is what I've noticed. And so I love that you're saying just give a variety, and don't be as scared to be bold and say what's really what you would say to someone authentically. And as someone who's like, this is who I am, take me as I am, I really respect that, because I think you have to start there and not have any like masks on when you're dating, because how are you going to find the right person if you're not giving them all of
agreed.
who you are and what you need and how you communicate, and this is my love language. If you don't know yourself, they can't get to know you either, and you certainly should not be changing for somebody or losing yourself in them. And all these patterns start at home with your family, like you were mentioning. And so I'm curious what your thoughts are about being a parent, especially being a mother, and being that source of calm for your kids so they can recognize what love should be and what relationships should be built on growing up. Because that mother child bond really affects a lot of people. And if there's different types, and if you have two people that are anxious together, they both have anxious attachments, it doesn't work. If you have to have the right mix between each other too. But I've heard that you always have to have one person that's the calm one in the relationship. At least one of the people, one has an anxious attachment, but one has a healthy one, it will work. But if you have two that pull at each other or have conflict, it won't work. So some of it's inner work that you have to do. And as a mom, I want to be conscious of what I'm teaching my kids and what I'm doing, because I want to set them up to attract the right people. I've got a teenager right now. If she starts dating the wrong guys, I'm going to go, what did I do to set her up for wanting the drama or whatnot instead of the calm, So what are some ideas around that you can speak on?
Yeah, and I think it's about being really open. Like, I'm really open with my kids about my journey. Like, they know when I'm going on a date, they'll ask me loads of questions about the guy. I've never introduced them to any guy, but I want them to know that it's normal. And even actually tonight, funnily enough, it's no coincidence we're talking about this. My daughter had a friend over, a male friend. She's 16. And so I was here as well. And anyway, like at dinner tonight, I said, I'd really love to have a chat with you about consent. And I know we've talked about this before. And she said, yeah, no, I know everything about it. I know everything about it. And I said, I have no doubt that you know a lot about it. Like, I'm not saying you don't. I said it's more, would you be open to hearing something that I have learned about it? And it's almost like, having these conversations, but asking for permission to share something, and
Yeah.
for them to, it's just like, instead of, I think I've learned this, there have been times where I've gone, just blurted, what I want to say. And, they're not maybe ready to receive that information.
Mhm.
So I try to be, open about it, and just, to say, would you be happy to hear about it? And this perspective that I've discovered myself. And I don't know whether it goes totally in or not, but it's like, I know I've shared that.
Yeah.
And I think, I also am from the mindset that our kids have to learn themselves. And
Yeah.
so they might make mistakes. And I think, they've seen, I think something that I know that I've modeled really well to them is to always own your truth,
Mm.
even
Yes.
when it's really deeply uncomfortable and could cause a huge amount of upset, which, me leaving the marriage, it caused a huge amount of upset
Yes.
for my ex, understandably, right? It was a surprise for him. So I think that's something that I always model, is always to express your truth. And I think that's it. It's like just being, the more you're open, they feel that. And the stuff that
Yeah.
my kids share with me, I'm like just blown away, because I never shared to the level that they share
Yeah.
when I was their age. Like, I didn't share in that way with my mum.
Well, and you've
So
made the environment for that, so kudos to you for creating that. But I think even just the way you're approaching communicating, asking permission is so important starting in the teenage years, because they get to start
yeah,
forming their identity. They're going to form their identity around who they're going to be, what love is going to be for them, what all those things. They're just discovering them, and we're kind of just there to support and create boundaries to keep them safe, but they still have their choice. And it's better they learn those lessons
yeah,
the hard way at home with love and a secure
mm,
environment than to make bigger mistakes out in the real world. And I love too that you're open about talking about sexuality to your kids. I think some
yeah,
people really are uncomfortable with it and shy away from it. We never talked about it with me growing up, and it led to a lot of holes because I never had a sexual education class either. It was so sheltered that I actually got taken advantage of because I didn't understand some of the mechanics or how
mm,
people may prey on you, or there were so many things I didn't know, and it didn't serve me to be naive. I really don't think it's bliss to be naive at all, because they're in our world today, especially sexuality is everywhere and versions of it are everywhere. And so you have to have those conversations earlier and younger for whatever age they're at, that's appropriate. And the way that you did it, it sounds like you guys have a way of continuing that dialogue that's comfortable. I think maybe the first conversation around puberty is always a little awkward, but if you, there's so many tools out there and resources now, but I would rather have been able to own my sexuality earlier in my life, because I don't think I even owned it until my 30s. I just really didn't understand that I was allowed to, or that I could
mhm,
own it and be like, yeah, sometimes I can be a hot vixen when I want to be, and that's okay. That's just part of who I am, and it's, I can be passionate in my love for who I love. That's okay. It's not wrong to be sexy, quote unquote. I don't have to be this meek little pure innocent lamb over here. I can own what vibrates with me. And but then there's a responsibility with that, I think, too. Once you own your truth, I think resilience is a lot about finding your truth and then protecting it and staying true to it. Because resilience, I
mm,
think, is those things that teach you what was not your truth and bring you back to it.
mm. Yeah, true. Yeah, and what you were talking there about sexuality, yeah, that's been massively my journey. And again, you know, like you, I grew up in an environment where it was completely taboo.
Yeah.
So much shame done behind closed doors quietly, all
Mm.
riddled with shame. And I actually didn't um, wake up to this until I was in my late 40s.
Wow.
And that's when I fully owned my sexuality. And suddenly it was like I was going through this awakening, and it was, yeah, just like shedding all this conditioning, and the shame. And oh my gosh, like it was just totally blocking me from connecting with myself first and foremost,
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I like to bring it to the breakfast table, I say. which, you know, my kids are sometimes eye rolling, especially if their friends are over and we get into a conversation about non-monogamy or something. Like, you know, I that happened once with my son and his friends, and he's like, I really wish you didn't do that. And I was like, but your mates were really up for talking about it, which they were, because they don't get to talk about it with their own parents. And I was
Yeah.
like, this is really important, you know, whether it makes you feel uncomfortable or not. Yeah, okay, but this is massively important. And like you say, it's, you know, it's an expression of you.
Yeah. And if you're not going to have that conversation, they're going to find the information somewhere else, and it may not be accurate, or it may be biased, or it may be a
Yeah.
sales pitch, because sex is in everything that's sold too. And it gives a false concept of what you were talking about. Like, it's got to be fireflies, and it's got to be, or butterflies, and it's got to be fireworks. It's got to be this big thing like in the movies. And it's just so amazing. And calm and peace, I think, are what we're starting to really see and value more in the world, and realize, no, that's what it's about. It's about a flow. It's about being in your truth and just flowing, and find a person that adds to your flow, that adds, you add to each other. Not that you're not whole beings, because you're whole beings coming together. It's not, I'm waiting for my other fat half to like be fulfilled.
Oh no.
That's, please no, people, please no. But when you come together, you should complement each other. And what do you look for in that with dating?
What do I look for?
Mm-hmm.
So I have got pretty savvy to really, like, I know my full body yeses, I know my full body no's, and I absolutely own them. And so I can pretty much tell in the first couple of sentences from a guy whether he's a yes or a no, or if I'm still curious. So there's a guy that I'm chatting with at the moment, funnily enough. And I remember when he showed up, and I was like, curious about you. Okay, I'm going to stay open. He's a little bit younger than what I would normally want to date, but I'm like, Claire, stay open, because that doesn't mean that he's not, you know, kind of self-aware, right? Because that's like my key value. And actually, like, we've had some really incredible, deep conversations through text, just through the dating app. We have a lots of like synergies. He's an entrepreneur as well, very creative like me. And yeah, it's been a really delicious conversation. And I left him a voice note yesterday, because I was just like, I get done with typing and I'm just like, voice note. Voice note.
Yeah.
So I love a voice note. So I left him a voice note, and I was really delighted that he voice noted back, because one of my things that I, you know, it's almost like a little bit of a check-in with my body, is the voice. If the voice does not turn me on, it has to go. And it's not like a butterfly feeling. It's like the place in my body that I know is a yes. And it's like, is that feeling like a yes right now? And I'm like, okay, you can stay a little bit longer, because I like your voice. It's speaking to me. It's resonant with me.
How would someone develop that awareness if they don't have it, to the yes and the no's, the way that you have?
Yeah, and that is a really important thing to start with. It in everything, not just dating, in all areas of your life, is to start that connection with your body. And what I recognize through coaching, this is normally a pattern I see with women, is they live in their heads, and they're not even connected to their bodies. So sometimes the first step for someone is literally just consciously connecting, like pausing, going, how am I feeling in my body right now? You know, when you're making an action of any sort. But yeah, it's almost like playing with it. So some, you know, recognizing what your yes and your no is like, you know, your yes might be tingles, right? Your yes might be just this sense and knowing. I'm trying to think what other ways that people will feel that. But I mean, I always say for a no, if it's not a full body yes, it's a no.
Mm. Yeah,
Right?
that's good.
Or
Yep.
if you notice you're trying to manipulate the no and check again, because I had this tonight actually, funnily enough, with a client who said to me that she wanted to make an action on something, and I was just like coaching her through, and I was like, tell me, like, where was your yes? Like, where were you feeling that? And she was like, I was feeling it in my gut. And I went, well, that's curious, because that's where your ego resides, right? Your subconscious,
Mm.
right? So that generally isn't a good place to be making a decision from. And then as we started talking, I was like, so tell me, where in your body is your full body yes? And she was like, well, it's in my sacral. And I said, okay, that's your womb, right? So, how is that feeling? And then anyway, as we explored the whole conversation, what she revealed to me was actually she got a no first, but then she challenged it because she wanted it to be a yes.
Yeah. How often does that happen? I know I've had that happen.
Oh, I mean, gosh, yeah, I totally know that I've done that. It's like, hang on, let me check. I really want to do this. But yeah, it's it's really checking in with yourself, like connecting consciously with your body. And we haven't been taught how to do this. And it takes pausing,
Yeah.
slowing down.
Oh, absolutely. Like grounding, tapping, breathing,
Yep.
just breathing, just learning to
Breathing.
breathe.
Yep.
It's
Mm-hmm.
so, these simple things that I think people they think it has to be a big thing. Just like with the
Yep.
dating, actually it's these simple little habits we do every day, or that moment of pause, that really have the most power in our life. And something
Yeah.
you talked about too that really resonated with me, I would say my first couple of relationships, and I've been through 2 divorces and a heck of things,
Mm-hmm.
but I think something that needs to be, I don't hear discussed a lot, but I feel like you would be able to speak on it, is it is important that you're attracted to them. Like it can't just check the boxes financially or somebody else's box for you or what would look good or whatnot. Like it is important there's an attraction there. It's not just,
Mm,
I think because I'm in a conservative Christian community, they're just like, just find
sure.
someone. Just be
Right.
acceptable to it. Go find somebody so you can be married and we don't feel bad that you're the single mom. And like,
Ah.
don't feel sorry for me. I'm waiting for the right person. And I
Mm-hmm.
do have to be attracted to them. It can't just be, oh, here's the other single guy at church. Let's put her together with the other single guy. Or here's a guy who has a little son too. Oh, their sons would play together. Like there's so much more to what I'm looking for than just a few boxes. And I certainly am beyond needing to be acceptable. It's kind of too late for that as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not going to any shame or guilt about that anymore. I'm different. I'm blazing my own trail. And I think I need to. I'm a chain breaker in my family. There's a lot of different things that I'm not going to continue and different patterns that I want to make. And it's going to take the right person at the right time. And I'm trusting God on a lot of that too. And maybe I'm not done yet. Maybe I'm still finding my truth and getting to where I can feel that yes or no quickly. And that's okay. And so I know
Mm.
when the time's right, I'll approach it. And I'll definitely take everything we've had in this discussion today with me. So that'll help too. But
Love that.
so
Mm.
with that, how do you let your daughter like own that? Like
Mm.
that she gets to own who she's attracted to, who she's choosing. She gets to make that list and she doesn't have to compromise on any of it. And she doesn't have to apologize to anybody or, oh, you guys are so cute together, or let some outside source be validation. How do you let her trust herself in that process?
Um, yeah, do you know what I really do? And it's interesting, when she was here with her friend this evening, there were times where I was going out and I thought, I do trust her. And I think,
Mm.
that is a felt thing.
Yeah.
Children will feel that. Like I do really, really trust her. And there's been times where there was a time actually, I remember a couple of years ago where she lied to me about something. And I
Mm.
knew that I just let the space be created for her to then feel ready to tell me. It was
Mm.
like I didn't keep pressuring her. It was just like, do you want to tell me? about this now. And yeah, it's almost like empowering her, you know. And but yeah, I think you know, she's seen me dating and she'll go, "Oh, what's happened with that guy?" And I'm like, "Do you know what? I wasn't quite feeling it."
Mm.
And I'll share that with her. I'm like, "Can't really pinpoint it, but wasn't quite feeling it. So, you know, I'm not seeing him again." So I think I model that to her. I don't have
Yeah.
to speak about it. It's just like, yeah, she's, you know, I'm being open with her about my own journey. And I really do feel like she's really confident. Like she really expresses herself and she seems to be very clear about things and will say if she's not. And is quite vocal about that. But yeah, if she's suddenly not feeling something, she will let you know about it. And so I just really trust that will happen in her friendships and relationships too.
Yeah. And being the mom